Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I'm thankful to have Mike Soares with me. Mike is a certified personal trainer and the founder and CEO of New Human, a virtual app that offers live training and personalized workout programs tailored to their clients' needs. He has trained people from diverse backgrounds, ranging from Olympians and professional athletes to children in kindergarten. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, man. I'm very excited to be on the podcast. I'm excited to chat.
Of course, thankful to have you on. So, for people that don't know you as well, can you take us back to the beginning? Where you grew up, your family situation, what type of kid you were, things like that?
Yeah, of course. So I was born in Framingham, Massachusetts, which is like central Mass. I grew up in Milford, Mass. And I am a first generation college student. My family's from Brazil. I'm actually going there for the first time this summer, so I'm very excited.
Let's go.
Yeah, oh yeah. I've been practicing a lot of Portuguese with my girlfriend, so it's super funny. She's Brazilian. She doesn't look it, but we just speak Portuguese to each other for the past like month in preparation for that.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome.
yeah, I went to Bridgewater State. I played basketball there. I played volleyball and basketball, so I was always been like an athlete in high school. But I didn't start playing sports until high school, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I got an exercise science degree at Bridgewater and then started working at a place called Equinox 3 days after I graduated. If anybody doesn't know what Equinox is, it's like they call it a luxury gym chain. It's like a high-end gym chain, which is pretty cool. I lucked out getting a job there. And then I started New Human because at the time, I was like usually number one or two, statistically, number one or two trainer at my gym. And I was working crazy hours, like 80-hour weeks, but I still felt like I could help a lot of people. So I started New Human, which is just like an online training program where I just make people's workouts. And then more people would reach out through Instagram and social media. So started helping people through that. And then right before the pandemic, coincidentally, one of my clients, we teamed up, created a little fitness app. We were running Zoom workouts before COVID. So then when COVID happened, it was pure luck. We already had like a virtual gym per se with 8 other trainers, a full workout schedule. So yeah, then it just blew up from there. And if you see some movement behind me, I have a puppy.
That's awesome.
And making sure he's good for right now. But yeah, man, that's the little breakdown for the time being. And currently in the position to try to open up a gym right now.
Awesome. Congrats. So just going back a little bit, you talked about being a first generation college student. I'm curious, if someone's out there watching this right now, can you talk about maybe your pieces of advice in terms of maximizing resources in high school and kind of some of the steps you did right?
Yeah, 100%. I was very lucky. I got a lot of financial aid at the time, and my mom paid out of pocket. And looking back, it was expensive for how much she was making. And it's so crazy. Like, I'm so appreciative of my family, but like my mom was hustling to make sure I could get an education and it was worthwhile. Right. It worked out, but I definitely say put all things into consideration, your family's financial situation. Not that that's the number one thing, but I went to college not knowing what I wanted. And I wish I did more research. I changed my major. Hey, bro. I changed my major right after my first semester. I wanted to be a gym teacher. And I found out, not that I don't like working with kids, but I prefer working with adults. You know what I mean? So like doing your research is super important. But yeah, man, I think having a different background definitely makes me, I think, a better person personally, because I've seen how other people live. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand different cultures, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I think traveling is one of the world's best like educators. And coming from different backgrounds, you learn that your way isn't the only way to get something done. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of different ways to get certain things done. And yeah.
In terms of the college experience, I'm curious, um, do you feel like there's any piece of advice there too, in terms of, I don't even know, just taking advantage of the resources the college offers, getting, a side job to, maybe keep up with, I don't even know. Is there anything
Yeah,
that
no,
you would?
100%. No, I'm following, bro. Connections. I think the number one thing with college was the connections, and not that you become friends with people to later in life use them, but you never know who knows what. You know what I'm saying? Who knows who. At one point, I was actually a 18 plus club promoter, and I used to get so many people's numbers. So I was like very friendly with people. I played college basketball, which helped out because people would come to the games. They knew who I was. And I was lucky. Like my school had 15,000 people. So I knew a lot of people. I didn't know all 15,000, but I knew a lot of people. And just having that incredible network has helped me so much in all different types of, whether it's professional, whether it's friends, whether it's knowledge. Like I just have such a diverse group of friends and such a diverse network that it's helped me tremendously. And talking about network, the hiring manager at my first job after college was from Bridgewater State. So we connected just like that. You know what I'm saying? But in regards to school, there are times where I was working 3 jobs just to have money to help pay my mom, pay the car payment that I was using at school. You know what I'm saying? Like it, as much as life will get easier, there's going to be a time where there's grind, you know what I mean? And like, I definitely feel like college and like right after college was a big grinding time. Not that you're not grinding after that, but you get what I mean.
So you talked about a little bit going into Bridgewater State, maybe thinking you'll be a gym teacher. When did the personal training, come to your mind, and how did that all get started?
Yeah. So I initially was like, oh, like I'll be a phys ed teacher, be active, be in a school system. Like I love working with kids and I still do. But there is a difference between, for example, working with an adult who has to lose weight because he can't pick up his kid anymore because his back hurts, versus like a 10-year-old who wants to go around and just learn how to play soccer. Not that that's negative, but there's just a different purpose. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And when I was in school, I initially wanted to be a gym teacher, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to school to become a physical therapist. And going back to doing your research side of things, I didn't know you needed to get you needed to get your doctorate. And at the time, my family didn't have money to pay for a whole doctor's degree. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? So one of my top pieces of advice would say, intern. I did 4 internships while I was in college, and they're all great experiences, but I learned what I didn't want to do. I interned at a physical therapy clinic. I interned at an athletic facility, and I love that. I love working with athletes. But at the end of the day, the general population had like the most like meaning behind their training because they wanted to be there. They wanted to get to point A to point B. Not that athletes and kids don't want to do that, but it's just more of a life meaning. And I feel very like fulfilled when I train people like that.
Yeah. The entrepreneurial spirit, in terms of founding New Human, later in your life, you mentioned, you were doing some nightclub promoting. I'm curious, is that, in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, was that something that came to you while at Equinox, or was that something always on your mind that maybe someday I'm going to do something? Like, where does that come from for you?
So super funny. So at the moment, I had a friend who was like, hey man, like you can get paid to party, like you know a lot of people, come help me promote this event. So I was in school and I would basically sell tickets for a party bus and then a club, and I'd make a percentage. And for talking specifics, it would be like a $30 ticket. I'd make $10 for each $30 ticket I'd sell, and I'd sell like 300 of them. And
Yeah,
at the time, making that much money in
it's a lot
college,
of
you're
money.
like, holy shit, like what?
Yeah,
And I was like, I'm good at this. You know what I mean? Like, I like going out. Not that there's anything wrong with drinking or smoking. Like, anybody can do whatever. But I enjoyed going out sober a lot of times. So I'm like, wow, I can really make money from this. So I did that while I was in college. And once I graduated, the entertainment team that I was working for was trying to expand into Boston. So I was like, all right, I'll be that head guy. So I started working at Equinox. And as an entrepreneur at Equinox, it's a commission-based job. So you're not making a lot of money. Like for a while, I was making $250 bi-weekly because I didn't have any clients.
yeah,
So I would supplement that with my side hustle, which is promoting. And it actually worked out because like I'd go out to the club in Boston, see somebody from the gym and be like, hey, like I recognize you from the gym. Let's get a workout in this week, and vice versa. Like, not that everybody does this, but I'm pretty friendly with a lot of my clients. I'd be like, yo, like get a few of your friends. Let's go enjoy a drink, right? Life's about balance. Like you can work out, have a great time, and also understand you can also go out and have a great time and still be quote unquote healthy. So it was like a yin yang. Like it really helped my entrepreneur side because I learned how to market. I learned a bunch of different things. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely helped me out.
yeah. So after Bridgewater, I saw you were at Equinox, a trainer there. You talked about it a little bit, but can you just talk a little bit about any pieces of advice you have for someone out there, trying to become a trainer at a place like Equinox?
Yeah, definitely. So any commission-based job, not that it's about the money, but any commission-based job, there's going to be a rough point where you don't have a lot of clients and you really have to grind, and you're going to be denied a lot because you need to learn how to sell yourself and you need to learn how to perfect your craft. So like I was a slow bloomer. Like I was there for over 2 months and didn't have a client. That's like pretty slow. And eventually, like I think I went like 0 for like 9. Um, and then I had a talk with one of my regional managers. He like leadership as well, like being open to being coached. Like there's something that maybe you know about fitness that I don't, and there's things that I know about fitness that you don't. You know what I'm saying? Like always
Yep.
being open regardless of the person's education level. And I feel like that definitely helped me become a better individual and a better trainer. And then there was a sticking point where I finally got my first client and I literally went 7 for 7 after that. And I never looked back. You know what I'm saying? So like there'll be a point where it would all stick together, but you just can't give up. You know what I mean? Not that there's anything wrong working an office job, but for me, I really wanted to be active and do that. And the cap on that was unlimited. I could train people, as many people as I wanted, as little as I wanted, whatever. And it was all reflection of my direct effort, you know?
Yeah. Mike, I'm curious, you mentioned earlier like the 80-hour weeks. Um, where does that drive come from?
So I had a lot of drives, and I definitely think that's very important, especially if you want to be like a goal oriented person. Drive can be anything, can come from anything. Like I was afraid of failing. At the moment, I was really trying to buy my mom a house. So that's what really motivated me. Like we grew up in the same like town assisted, I don't even know what the proper term is, like housing system. And I was like, damn, like we're gonna live here for the rest of our lives. But it was like hustle, hustle. And I wanted to move to the city to be a little closer, to have a work-life balance. Like at the time, I was commuting a little over 2 hours a day. I'd like drive 20 minutes to the train station. The train station was like an hour, and then vice versa. And sometimes I'd be done working at 10 p.m. and like the train wouldn't be there until 10:50. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of like work-life balance that was just hard. So I was like, I need to have enough money to save up. I need to have enough money to move in with my friends and like continue like my life process. Not that there's anything wrong with living at home. So yeah, there's just a bunch of things, and surrounding myself, like it was really cool. We had really good managers, and the managers really knew how to like put us in competition, but not against each other. Just like everybody elevate. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Joe's doing a great job, Ant's doing a great job. Like, Mike, come on, let's pick it up. But it was never like a negative thing. You know what I mean? So I definitely think like in a positive environment and positive work environment is definitely very healthy. And I've found challenges with that being like an entrepreneur, not having a boss. It's like what motivates me now. You know what I mean? Like I don't have anybody talking to me like, oh, okay, you got to do this, this. I've had to develop that myself. Um, and yeah, it's just always a learning process.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the certifications, any secret tips on, or is it just simply studying and putting in the time?
So short story. At the Equinox I used to work at, I was, like I said, I always rotate between like 1 to 3 top trainers statistically. And like the top 10 trainers, I think there was only like 2 or 3 of us maybe that had a degree in exercise science or kinesiology. And it's really interesting because you think that everybody who's good is going to go to college for it and all that, but you get all the experience in person. You know what I mean? Somebody can have 20 certifications and not be a personable trainer. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like a personable person to be able to communicate and be fun to be around. It's not just creating workouts for people. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole level to it. And I definitely think everybody should have a baseline level of education. I have an ISSA certification, ISSA, and it's a little cheaper than the regular. A lot of people do NASM, which is like a whole college course. But this is definitely much more cheaper. You have your certification, and as much as you're going to learn from that, 99% of the learning is going to come on field. You know what I mean? So I've had a lot of friends from college, like, well, after I graduated, come shadow me, and they are like, yo, not that there's anything wrong in class, but yo, I just learned so much about training the last 2 hours than I have in like the past month. You know what I mean? Like, definitely put yourself in those positions to try to directly learn from people that are ahead of you or are doing what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. So at some point while you're at Equinox, the idea of New Human comes up. Talk to me about, I don't know if you were, but were you feeling fearful of reaction of others, of, young guy trying to start this business, and maybe you're, you know, reaching too high, or any, like, were you fearful of judgment?
Oh, 100%. It actually, I had the whole business plan down, and it took me 4 months after successfully having everything ready to release it just because I couldn't agree on a name. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, people are going to judge the name. You human, like, I need to name X. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
there's just so much fear of failing. And like, I remember I had so much anxiety, like making the post, being like, yo, like, I'm going to start this. But I'm lucky enough where I have such a supportive community around me that so many people are like, yeah, like, let's go. And like anything, you're going to have a level of fear and a level of like, oh my God, people are judging, but you just got to push through. Um, I remember too, I wanted to be a little bit different. And I was like, something that's going to definitely motivate me is everybody who signs up for New Human, they're going to be helping themselves while helping others. I donate a percentage every month to of my, what I make every month from New
Yeah.
Human to different, usually it's a children's health related foundation. But I've done a bunch of different philanthropist type foundations. But like,
That's
for example,
awesome.
right now, I'm running the Boston Marathon. I'm almost at $10,000 raised for them. So like
Wow.
that's been where all my energy's been concentrated to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a dope concept, and I'm glad I didn't hesitate too much and not release it because there's points where I was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. You know what I mean? But you're not gonna know until you try. So
Yeah. Um, I guess you know, you kept your Equinox job for a little bit during that time period. Do you have any pieces of advice of like managing, and you mentioned, I'm not sure if you were with your girlfriend at the time, but you mentioned, maybe, even social life. Like, how were you managing full-time job, side hustle, friends, maybe relationship, family? Like, how are you doing all that?
yeah, there's definitely a time where it was very difficult. Like looking back, right? Like at all points of your life, you have your friend column, your family column, your significant other, your work, your food, your rest, your self care, and it's always constantly moving. And at the time, I remember I was living with my friends when I opened up New Human, and like I remember I wake up at like 5, be at work at 5:30, be at work from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m., drive 10 minutes home, and then be on my laptop from 7:30 until 11 p.m. working on New Human, all the online stuff, and then repeat 4 days a week minimum. You know what I mean? That was my life. And I definitely look back and be like, that wasn't healthy. But at the moment, like those were the two columns that like really were the two columns I was trying to concentrate at. And luckily, like my girlfriend's very supportive, and like when I'm very appreciative of her, because when she's home, it's like, okay, it's our time. And that gives me a break from work. Cause like the way my mind is wired, I'm just like, okay, I'm not doing anything. Like after this, she's not going to be here. I have another 3 hours. Like I'm going to work until 10 p.m. Like that's just
Yeah.
how I am. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
sometimes you need to have that other balance.
Yeah.
Um, but there's definitely going to be moments where you need to, like, I work with a lot of very successful professionals, and like they're working 100-hour weeks and they still find the time to work out, and they have understood like you always have to make sure you take care of yourself. Like there's times where I was sleeping like 4 hours a night, multiple nights in a row, and then like by night 3 I'd be like a mean individual because I was just so tired. But
Yeah.
like now, like living with my girlfriend, I make sure I get my 8 hours regardless of how much work I have. I make sure like I turn my phone off at 8 p.m. I'm taking my time cooking with her. You know what I mean? Like you have to find that balance, especially if you want to sustain. Like you can't work or do whatever 200 hours a week, whatever it is, consistently. Like you're going to get burnt out. You know what I mean? So you have to find those columns and constantly adjust them, whether it's week by week, day by day, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about with regards to developing the app, the website, or anything like that?
Yeah. So going back to those 80-hour weeks that I was working, I had a friend, or at the time, he's my friend, one of my best friends now. But I was training this kid, super successful. He had a website building, consultation business, like at the age of like 18, sold it for a lot of money and all that fun stuff. And I would train him, And then you get mad when I didn't have enough time slots to train during the week. I'm like, yo, I'm training like 40 people. Like, I can't fit you X, Y, Z. He's like, why don't you get a little bit more like consistent income where you don't have to be face to face to people all day? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, why don't you build an app? Why don't you build a website? I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. What do you want to do? And then he helped me. I hosted on Mighty Networks, which is basically like a skeleton app. So it's a app where you can build your own app in it per se. And I have my own community on there. It's 3 days free and then $20 a month. And on it, there's over 200 workouts. There's like 30 workout programs. You can communicate with coaches. You communicate with your friends. Like, it's super dope. I'd consider it like a fitness social media community type per se, I guess. And yeah, so we developed that back in January 2019, I think, or whenever, right before COVID happened. 2020, January 2020.
Yep.
Because COVID started happening March 2020. And it's just been I'm very appreciative. It's helped me with my work-life balance, right? Because like, I have no idea how many people are on there right now, but like, say I have 200 people on there paying $20 a month, like that now gives me all that time, money, like all that time back. So I don't have to be working 14-hour days. Like now I usually train about 4 to 7 people a day, have breaks, bring my dog to work, go for a walk. Like, I'm training for the Boston Marathon right now. So like, that's a whole lot of time commitment.
Yeah.
So having work-life balance I have now is so much better, but it didn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? That's like almost 5 years in the field of trying every single day, you know?
Yeah. Um, you know, I think I saw like 7 or 8 trainers on your site. Can you talk about that aspect of being an entrepreneur, of hiring your first employees, especially with very little brand. I mean, I guess
Mhm.
obviously they know you probably, but just the hiring process and managing them, and how they've continued to stay with you.
Yes, of course. So I definitely think out of my professional career, like, I'm a trainer, not a manager. So I definitely feel like initially managing a lot of trainers who all of them were very close, are all close of my friends, but like, we're all close close friends prior to hiring, was definitely a very tough line to walk, right? Because imagine you're working with one of your best friends and you're like, hey, can you do this? Can you, like, you don't want to be pointing fingers and telling people what to do, especially if they're your friend, right?
Yep.
So it could definitely be tricky initially, but when it's clicking because everybody loves each other. Everybody's great. You know what I mean? Not that it doesn't click, but there's going to be moments, you know what I mean, where you'll butt heads, not crazy, but just everybody has different opinions.
Yep.
But I am so appreciative of them because I wasn't going to be on after working 10-hour days, then at 6 p.m. try to teach classes. So they would teach classes, and all their stuff primarily is commission based. So like, somebody want to train with me, I don't have time, I'll sell them a package and then train with one of the other trainers. I get part of it, and then the trainer now has clients all under New Human. You know what I mean? So it's like a big umbrella of everybody helping each other, and different people specialize in different talents. Like, one of our coaches, Aaron Anabali, I know a lot of basketball drills. I know how to be like train somebody basketball wise, but Aaron's the basketball guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's the one who handles all the basketball. You know what I mean? So like,
Yep.
I think having the versatility and also the understanding that you're not perfect at everything, and there's other people that are better than you at certain things, like, ask for their help, whether that's work or life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to develop websites. So guess what? I hired somebody to do websites. You know what I mean? Like, learning and giving up your ego definitely is a big, big plus when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. The developing the programs, does that just come through experience with fitness and exercise, or?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely say a lot of people don't know this about fitness. Like, they think, I'm sure some trainers just show up and make up workouts, but real workout programs have progressive overload. Like, they challenge you, they become like, it's structured. And I remember for each hour session, I was definitely prepping for a very long time each, right? So like, say I'm working like 40 hours in the gym training people, like, I'm working another 80 prepping all that. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not
Yeah.
that black and white, not literally that, but you get the
Yeah.
point. But programming is definitely an art. Everybody has different styles. I definitely think people should have education and go through like certifications to learn how to program properly. Um, but luckily, I have an assistant now, and she used to be a trainer. So she'll basically give me like a rough draft program. I'll edit it a little bit more specific to my style and then pass it back and forth, So like, for example, something like that. Like I enjoy programming. It's an art to me, but I don't like sitting in front of a laptop doing that for 5 hours a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I guess I'm gonna definitely transition to fitness questions, but I guess in terms of New Human, is there anything else? I know you said you're possibly looking at a physical gym. Is there anything else in terms of New Human and the future that you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. Biggest priority right now is trying to open up a physical location, right? Because I love community and like I love having an online community, but there's just a difference between being like online and being face to face with people. And also going on like another side of the business thing, like New Human Clothes like makes up a large part of the business. And I think it's the coolest part, obviously, is helping people change their lives, but there's been so many instances all around the world. Like literally last year, I think I shipped to over 50 or 60 countries. But like it's so cool when like I'll have two people that don't know each other, see each other with New Human Clothes, take a
Yeah.
picture and text it to me. Like that's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
just
cool.
awesome seeing people like wearing something you're developing, and it's just so cool. But yeah, number one priority right now is opening up a physical location to try to get, people together and train together.
Yeah. So, in terms of fitness, I guess the first thing I want to ask is, I feel like I always hear people say, oh, you know, I have a tough time being consistent, or, I've slipped, or whatever. As a trainer and someone that likes exercise, do you have any advice for anyone on consistency?
Yeah. Um, Literally was preaching about this yesterday. I think consistency is the most important part of fitness. Like some people think that they need to be 100%, 100%, like the best. They have to have 100%, 10 out of 10 workout every time they work out. That's not realistic. There's going to be days where you're going to be tired. There's going to be days where you didn't get enough sleep. You didn't eat enough. So what's the most important part is just like being able to have like, okay, this is your workout today. You did a 5 out of 10. Cool. Then the next day you got like a 6 out of 10. Then the next workout was 3 out of 10. Then the next one was 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like that builds up like brick by brick. Having little accumulative wins is way more important than like getting 2 baller workouts a day. Because you got to think, I mean, 2 baller workouts a week. Because you got to think about it like working out, say you work out for 45 minutes a day. You then have 23 plus more hours, 100 plus a week hours where you have to work on consistent habits and other things. So a lot of people think fitness and health is around exercise, but like exercise is like very small part. Exercise should be to help you gain muscle and to make yourself feel good and like release endorphins. Body changing is all about nutrition and like real habits and sustainable habits. And sustainable habits come from consistency. You know what I mean? So if you're having a hard time being consistent, dial it back. Like I have somebody right now, they don't work out with unless they're training with me. So I'm like, okay, walk for 5 minutes outside. That's their goal. And now they literally just ran a half marathon, which is so crazy. Not saying anybody needs to run a half marathon, but like brick by brick, after training for a year, we've developed these consistent habits that have given them X goals. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, consistency is important.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You talked about it a little bit, but is there any general health tips that you have for people out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think people should try to make 1 to 2 goals each for these 3 categories. One of them is movement. So notice I say movement, not exercise, because some people don't even know what exercise really means. So movement is number 1. 2, nutrition, and 3 is rest. A lot of people skip that last part, but if you really think about it, rest is one of the most important parts of fitness. Like that's when everything happens. You know what I mean? Like that's when your body changes. That's when your body recovers. That's where muscle grows. You know what I mean? So I think rest is super important. But anyways, creating 2 little goals. So like, for example, movement, like get outside and move for 10 minutes a day. And the other one is like go to a gym 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Like they have to be measurable goals. Like it's not like, okay, I'm going to exercise today. It's like, no, it's like a black and white goal for nutrition. Have vegetables 4 times a day. Like it doesn't have to be 4 times, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
instead of like, I'm gonna have more veggies, it's like, no, what does that mean? It's no, I'm gonna have veggies 4 times a day, and it's very black and white. So having
Actionable. Yep.
measurable goals is the most important part.
Yeah. Um, the value of a trainer. When is the best time to get a trainer?
Anytime. If you really think about it, sometimes I've had people where I've trained them for like 2, 3 weeks and they're like, okay, I'm all set. But the realistic thing is everybody needs a trainer. The best athletes in the world sometimes have 1, 2, 3 trainers. You know what I mean? Like some people are like, oh, I need to get in shape to get a trainer. It's like, no, the trainer is there to meet you at your level and progress you. Like that's what a good trainer does. So I think anybody should prioritize self-care and prioritize having somebody there to push them. Even if you are very well educated with fitness, having somebody there structuring everything and taking that part of fitness out where you have to calculate stuff just makes it a better workout, makes it easier for you. You know what I'm saying?
Is there a way to determine like a good trainer versus like a great trainer?
Um, that's tough.
Yeah, no.
I can tell when somebody's a great trainer because they provide their trainees with X, Y, and Z. But I mean, a few characteristics that I can like some, for example, like a trainer who you only talk to them when, like, if that trainer only talks to you during that session, like, I mean, that could be what the person wants. But if that trainer's only giving them like help during that hour, like that may not be the trainer that you need because once again, like I was telling you, trainers need to help you stay accountable. They need to develop these habits for you. Like that's what separates a good trainer to a great trainer. But I mean, some people just need the most basic trainer to help them get to the gym, help them show up. You know what I mean? Like I've helped plenty of people who know how to exercise and push themselves, but their schedule is so busy, they need somebody to keep them accountable. You know what I mean? So like there's different variables. That's a good question though. No one's ever asked me that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that. I'll have to think about
Yeah.
that one.
No worries. Um, I also saw, you started the Open Up podcast in September of 2020. Curious, in terms of mental health, do you have any, um, you know, words of wisdom or advice to people out there?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I'll give you a little background on Open Up. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. One of my best friends, Lucas Bentis, we both started it together. And basically, the whole purpose of Open Up was benefits anybody. But our initial thought process was a lot of men don't speak about mental health. And it's definitely something that's like taboo in a lot of cultures. Like we're both Brazilian. Like obviously we've had like or not obvious, but we've had great family lives. And like, I'm very grateful. I was always able to talk to my mom about anything, but a lot of people don't have that luxury of being able to communicate their problems or what they're going through, or like even good things. Like I think therapy is great for rehab, like before something bad happens. But basically the whole principle was to just open up the floor to guys or to whoever to just communicate certain things. Like we've had a bunch of different episodes talking about breakups, talking about how to stay active, how to deal with seasonal depression. Like these are conversations that normally guys to guys don't have. Um, so I definitely think it's important to just have these conversations, post them online, because you never know if our goal is like, if we can just help one person, that's great. And I kid you not, we've literally gotten hundreds of messages from people, and we've only made, I don't even know, like maybe 24 episodes, and we've gotten hundreds of messages from other guys who, not trying to stereotype people, but like these huge gym bros being like, yo, like, I'm so appreciative of this. I've always been afraid to communicate about this. I'm definitely gonna be better about XYZ. You know what I mean? So trying to help the world be better and trying to help shine light on mental health is definitely something that's important to me. And hopefully it's continues to be an important thing for people to communicate about.
Yeah. Um, I saw you've trained some professional athletes and um, Olympians. Any words of advice on, making sure you don't get fired and you do a good job?
Yeah. I mean, I think any person you train, you should prepare very well, but like especially athletes, right? Because they're multi-million-dollar athletes. Like you can't bullshit a session. Like, you got to make sure everything is ready to go. And this principle works with anybody, but if an exercise has a horrible ratio of like risk to reward, like I've seen like some Instagram trainers have like a professional athlete and having them balance on one thing that if they fuck up, if they like slip and they're gonna break their ankle, like that exercise is not a good exercise for that person. Not that there's certain exercises that are good or bad, but there's definitely smarter choices in exercises. So definitely like understanding that like you need to have exercises that aren't like super safe, but like are just common sense, like are very low prone to injuries. Injuries happen. That's part of the human body. But a lot of people are like, wow, like what does a pro athlete workout look like? And it's actually super basic. They're just the ones that do the basics very well. They do the fundamentals very well. I've had some people who have like a more advanced workout than a pro athlete, and they're like a 30-year-old, not trying to say 30-year-old moms, like post moms are like unathletic, but like sometimes the pro athletes workouts are so much more basic than that because they just need to learn how to do proper movements and they just know how to do those movements very well. But yeah, I'm very lucky to have worked with a lot of successful people, whether it's athletes, business people, whatever. But the energy should stay the same regardless of who you're training, whether you're training a 5-year-old or a 70-year-old.
Yeah, um you know, Mike, obviously we don't know each other that well, but just like, from my research of you and just the interaction today, it seems like you've just got, I mean, nobody has life figured out, but you just have a good way about you. I'm curious, like, in terms of like, you've got a girlfriend, you've got a business, you've got things going for you. Um, do you have any flaws? Any bad side? Any
Yeah, I get
any
hangry
do
all
we
the
do
time.
we
Just kidding.
do you have any insecurities? Do you have anything on
Yeah,
the
yeah, definitely, dude.
okay.
I, I think I think some people, right? Like it's interesting. Like you can look, especially social media. I feel like a lot of times people compare themselves to other people and be like, "Well, that person has it all figured out." And like I do have a lot of things figured out, but I don't have everything figured out. You know what I mean? Like every day, like I'm very lucky where I'm in a good space with myself, with the people around me. But like I said, like the columns move. You know what I mean? Like people get upset, people get sad, you know what I mean? Like I get sad, you know what I mean? Like everybody's going through something. And one of my favorite quotes is like everybody's going through a battle that you know nothing about, you know what I mean? So like I definitely feel like people can present themselves as like perfect or like having a great job, but everybody's going through something. Um but yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference between some people that are like not, what's the term I'm looking for? Like I definitely have a positive outlook on life and I'm very lucky to have that outlook and I try to radiate that, right? Because my goal is to help people be happy, whether that's through fitness or communicating about mental health. But yeah, man, I definitely think everybody goes through certain things and some people are more positive than others. But for me personally, I just try to be very positive because I feel like that rubs off on myself. Like I just feel like thinking happy. But that's like I said, I don't think like that at all times.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we've talked about a good amount. Was there something, you wanted to talk about, whether life, business, relationships, anything else on the school of Mike Soares that you want to pass on to others?
Um, Man, I think we talked a lot about a lot of things. I mean, in regards to school, I definitely feel like if anybody's like whoever is listening to this, like feel free to reach out. I brushed upon this a little earlier, but like people should never be afraid to ask questions. Like I've always asked questions, but I feel like I wish I asked more questions earlier because you're only going to learn asking people that know things that you don't know. You know what I mean? So whether that's fitness, whether that's life, relationship, whatever it is, like always communicate and like utilize the people around you. A lot of people are like afraid of being judged, whether it's like thinking you're going to ask a stupid question or something like that, but you're never going to know if it's a good or bad question unless you ask. You know what I'm saying? You never know if the answer is going to be yes or no unless you ask. If you don't ask, it's going to be a no. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is always ask questions and be positive.
Do you have any regrets?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure. I'm trying to think right now.
Just for,
I try to.
anybody out there, just growing up that's like maybe 10 years younger than you in terms of as you look back on your life.
Um, Looking back, I remember my parents divorced when I was in sixth grade. I regret trying to be angry about it. Like I remember going to school one day and just being like, okay, I'm gonna be so mad. I'm not gonna talk to anybody. And I remember trying to be like very mad at the situation, but like it was out of my control, and I blame myself for that, and I regret blaming myself for that. And I remember that day within like first period, I started laughing. I was mad at myself for laughing, but it was just like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I remember that it's core memory. I remember specifically being in a class, Mr. Rodolfi class. She's the best math teacher ever. But yeah, I definitely think being mad at yourself for things you can't control is definitely like a big regret. I feel like I do that a lot. Um, and obviously everything has something to do with your life, but I definitely think like making sure controlling what you can control and controlling those emotions is definitely helpful.
And any advice on that part of if someone's going, if they're a young kid and going through their parents being divorced? I know a lot of people blame themselves or things like that. Anything that you look back on which you're like I wish I knew this.
Yeah, I wish I utilized my resources. I wish I went to therapy. I remember I went to one like part of the deal when they got divorced is like me and my sister and I went to like one therapy session, but like I wish I knew back then that it would have been much more helpful if I did do that, right? Just having an external voice, external person to listen to you talk or to give you feedback. Like I definitely think, but also you're a young kid, so you can't blame yourself for that. But I definitely think like communicating your feelings instead of internally letting them boil inside your head. Like I personally now, maybe this happens now because of that situation back then, but I used to try to store like 50,000 ideas in my head, good and bad, and it would just clutter my head. But now I'm like, okay, I have something, I got to write it down in my note, I got to physically write it down, and it's just like physically I feel like things are just getting out of my head. But yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Mike, if someone's listening and they want to support you, what's the best way to do that?
People can go to joinnewhuman.com. And you can sign up for the app. It's a 3-day free trial. You can get as many workouts as you want. I don't even care if people screenshot the workouts and leave the app afterwards. Like my goal is to help people, you know what I mean? But if anybody wants to connect with me, whether that's asking for in-person training or anything, they can visit my social media, which is at MOARES3, or the New Human Instagram, which is new_human. And then if anybody's feeling generous, I'm almost at my $10,000 Best Buddies Foundation goal. I'm at like $8,000 or $9,000. So you can donate through that through the link in my bio. But yeah, that's how they can connect.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I just want to acknowledge you, man. It's been cool to like research and learn your story from afar, and you mentioned it, but just the drive, especially from that you had during your Equinox days of whatever it was, working 60 to 80 hours and also working on a side hustle that now has become your real job, like it's your main hustle. That's just amazing. And I hope you recognize how cool that is. And thank you for all the knowledge. I feel like you gave away a lot of your secrets and knowledge, so I appreciate, and I think the listeners do appreciate that advice.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, man. Much success to this. I'm literally, I was listening to some episodes earlier in the week, and I'm looking forward to hearing all the episodes that will be on here soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.